It's awesome. Really fun. I'm going to start with some housekeeping. Um, Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us this evening. The structure of this event will first be introductions to our authors, and then a talk from Abby and Paola of the YA novel Sanctuary, and then we'll have some time to open up to questions and comments. If you have any technical difficulties, feel free to write it in the chat box and we will address them there. And if you have any questions for the authors or comments, feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A and we will address them at the appropriate times. Paula is going to join us a little late. She has another event that conflicted, but she'll be joining with us as soon as she can. So our co-author here, Abby Sher, will hold down the fort until she arrives for our discussion. Abby Sher is an award-winning writer and performer. She is the author of Miss You, Love You, Hate You, Bye, All the Ways the World Can End, Breaking Free, Amen, 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 a memoir of a girl who couldn't stop praying, and Kissing Snowflakes. One of her essays was included in the first season of Amazon TV's Modern Love. Abby has written and performed for The Second City, Upright Citizens Brigade, and HBO and NPR. Paola Mendoza, who will be joining us in just a little while, is an author, film director, activist, and artist working at the leading edge of human rights. A co-founder of the Women's March, she served as its artistic director and co-authored the New York Times bestseller, Together We Rise, behind the scenes at the protests heard around the world. Paola's film credits include the award-winning Entre Nos, Free Like the Birds, and Autumn Eyes. We'd like to thank all of our NEA sponsors, especially Friends of the Public Library for sponsoring this event and being able to have the opportunity to talk to our authors today. Please welcome Abby Sher and soon to be with us, Paola Mendoza, authors of Sanctuary. Abby, would you like to get started with a reading of a few pages of the first chapter?
Sure, that sounds great. This is the book right here, and I'm going to read from chapter 1 because I think that's a good place to start. It took 15 steps for her to die. 15, one for each year of her life before they snuffed it out. I was supposed to be doing homework. I actually was doing homework, but my phone kept buzzing, so I tapped on the notifications and there she was. I never did learn her name. In the reports, they would call her an illegal 15-year-old or a 15-year-old immigrant. It depended on who was talking. The underground reporters would also call her brave, defiant, fearless, and the government news would call her disease-ridden, illegal, criminal. But as I watched it with my own eyes, I saw that she was just a girl my age, wearing a faded Mickey Mouse t-shirt and jean shorts that were rolled up on top, but still looked like they might fall off her skinny waist. She had somehow gotten over a line of concrete ballasts and the chain link fence stretching across the burnt out field between Tijuana and San Diego. That rusty, mangled barricade that was supposed to keep people on the Tijuana side. It stood there as a scar, a reminder, a warning. Its sole purpose was to say, stay out, you don't belong here. That girl in the Mickey Mouse shirt had no time for warnings. She had no interest in being intimidated. She looked completely unafraid as she stepped away from the fence, entering the no man's land between Mexico and the United States. The girl was alone, unarmed. Her dark hair was tied back in a bouncy ponytail, and she had a bright red scratch under her left eye. Besides that, her face looked clear, even calm, as she made her way across the dusty strip of scrubland between Tijuana and the wall. Or really, the wall. The Great American Wall. There was nothing great about it, more like grotesque. It blocked out the sky with 50-foot-tall reinforced steel slats and thick metal mesh in between. Every few feet, there were coils of barbed wire strung across, and on top there was a maze of cables spitting out electricity. The government had spent gazillions of dollars and called in all the reserves to help build this monstrosity, sealing us off from the rest of the Americas. "Stop where you are," snarled a voice through a speaker by the wall. Technically, that girl wasn't even on United States soil. But as the president loved to say, America was the greatest nation in the history of greatness, and we needed to do whatever it took to protect our sacred borders. That was why there was a platoon of Border Patrol officers lined up on top of the wall. Green zombies, I called them, standing at attention in their olive-colored uniforms with pale, expressionless faces. They had the newest AK-87s strapped to their backs and German shepherds circling at their feet as they stared down that girl. Because this was their land. Because it was their duty to preserve and defend the United States of America. Because whatever this 15-year-old intended, walking across in her flip-flops and saggy shorts, she had now become a national threat. I was so scared and awestruck by that girl's slow, deliberate steps forward. I could even hear myself panting for her as I watched. "Mija, what are you doing?" Mommy asked me. "If you're done with your homework, get ready for bed." "Wait, you have to see this." "No, I don't." "Yes, Mommy, you do," my little brother Ernie said, padding in from the bathroom in his PJs. Last I knew, he was watching soccer on his phone, but he must have gotten the same alerts as me. "Something weird is going on at the wall," he reported. Mommy hated all the notifications and interruptions from our phones, even if we had saved up and paid for them with our own money. But when Ernie came in and made that announcement, Mommy stopped wiping the kitchen counter and marched over to stand behind me at the table. "Queso, I can't even see, the screen is too small," she sighed. Mommy loved to tell us how when our family first came to this country, we watched the same show all together on a single television. Of course, that was before the government took over the broadcasting system, before they censored any newscasters who disagreed or said too much, any movies or shows that seemed unpatriotic. If we wanted to see anything honest or original these days, we had to watch someone's live stream on the dark web, which is what we were doing now. The three of us pressed our heads together, watching the image blink in and out because of the poor connection. The camera panned around, showing faces caught between hope and panic. "I don't like this," Ernie said. I didn't either, but we couldn't turn away from the screen. We couldn't move. We could only gape at this staticky footage as that gutsy girl planted each foot down. 1, 2, 3. There were shouts from the crowd of people in Tijuana gathering behind the barricade. "¿Qué está haciendo? Cuidado!" An air horn blasted. Another green zombie shouted through the speakers. "Get back behind the fence," he bellowed. "You're not permitted on U.S. soil. We repeat, you are not permitted on U.S. soil." The girl paused and raised both of her hands in the air to show that she meant no harm. She squinted into the bright West Coast sun with a sort of half grin. Her arms were loose and gawky. I wondered if she was born with this kind of wild bravery, or if she'd just already lost too much to care. She stepped forward again. "Why is she doing that?" whispered Ernie. "Why isn't she listening to them?" I tried to mumble some sort of response, but my tongue felt too big for my mouth. I flipped to another live stream in Tijuana. They were all filming this girl now. Some from so far away, she looked like a speck creeping across the frame, in between the concrete posts. Others zoomed in so close, I swear I could see the hairs in that girl's nose. Yes, we were watching her on a screen from thousands of miles away in the safety of a dusky Vermont evening, but my whole body was trembling for her. I wished I had even a smidge of her courage. There's no trespassing in the demilitarized zone, the zombies ordered again. We repeat, no trespassing in the demilitarized zone. Dios mío, Mommy said in a low voice, clicking her tongue. She made the sign of the cross, and I swallowed hard. Mommy was as tough as they came, the creases around her eyes holding on to all her worry and pain so that she could always face the world with composure. If she was asking God for help, then this was definitely a moment of truth. Meanwhile, the girl took another step forward, and another. She looked like she was full on smiling now. At least that's how I want to remember her. This is your last warning, roared the zombies. Eres un héroe cuidado, yelled the crowd behind her in Tijuana. I could hear people chanting from behind the wall in San Diego. It sounded like they were saying, let her through, let her through. The voices on all sides swelled and lifted her up so she looked like she was floating those last few steps. 11, 12. I was counting in my head. She had just put down her flip-flop for the 15th time when the ground exploded underneath her. The sudden flares of orange, yellow, and red slashing through her, blowing her into bits, turning her into dust. I think that's where I'll stop.
Thank you for reading that. So this takes place in 2023 or 32?
2032.
2032. So not too far, but how did
No.
you envision this near dystopian future? Where did the idea come from?
Honestly, I think we both wanted it to be farther in the future. But as we were writing it under the last administration, the things that we were envisioning for the future were already happening. We were getting news alerts that these horrible events were taking place at the border, and every plot twist that we had about what could be the most cruel and inhuman treatment of people, Trump would actually do. So we made it just far enough in the future that it is a clarion call. It's a call to action, but not so far that this is completely possible. There's maybe a few technological things that are futuristic. Watching everything on the dark web, for instance, but there's not that much about this that's really futuristic in many senses. And all the things that we did technologically, we just looked at what the trends are in technology today. So it's a clear trajectory there.
So your book can be quite relentless at times, very painful.
Mm-hmm.
How did you remain strong as the writers of this book and staying strong and hopeful as you wrote these difficult chapters? How did you protect your heart during this writing process?
That's a beautiful question. I'll let Paula answer that as well, because I think she's been doing this work, talking to immigrants, really interviewing them, finding people that would trust her with their stories for 2 decades. So she has had this really unrelenting process for a lot longer than I have. I come from a world of comedy and really needed to feel like I was writing something that had purpose and that it could contribute to the world more. And when I found her, I was so thrilled to work on this with her. That said, I think I do turn to comedy for relief at the end of the day or in the middle. And I think being with my kids, being, stepping outside, it's very hard to compartmentalize, which is yeah, which is the challenge of writing something that's meaningful.
Um, as part of our big read here in Santa Fe, the adult book we chose is Into the Beautiful North. And we have a book club with Penitentiary of New Mexico, and some inmates there that have been reading it with us. And that's something that we talked about on Tuesday in our book club was because similarly Into the Beautiful North, it's a very difficult subject, but there's comedy throughout. And we talked about comedy being a survival skill.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I do want to say that however dark it gets, this is a story of hope and a story of a young person leading the charge forward and beginning the movement towards humanity, which is why we made it YA in many ways, why we focus on a 15-year-old, or really the 15-year-old that's telling the story, is because they are the ones that are actually doing the work right now to pull this world into a more humane place, especially in this country. All the movements that have been started, whether it's Greta or it's Sebastida or anybody that is making positive change, it keeps on starting with the younger people, which is fabulous and heartbreaking and inspiring.
Yeah. Um, so reading Sanctuary, I think adults would love it just as much as teenagers, YA. Um, was it important for you guys to choose this genre, choose to write a YA novel as opposed to an adult, or?
It was. I think we like to call it intergenerational because we do so many we talk to so many people who read it with their teenager, or they'll both read it and sort of open that discussion. I have written 6 books, and I tend to write in a young adult voice, probably because I'm stuck there mentally, but also because I think that when you are on the cusp of adulthood, um, you actually are the most open and the most vulnerable and the most honest in many ways, and you're taking everything in, and you're also full of incredible wisdom. Um, so I really I admire teens so much, and I think that we needed to tell this again from someone who is a teenager who is actually forced into this. It's not like she starts out in the book wanting to lead a revolution. She's literally watching another person die, and she wants no part of it. And I think that's true for a lot of teenagers, is like, I want no part of this. I want no part of your adulthood or your, horrible government or whatever it is. But she has such incredible strength once she is forced into this. And um, as an intergenerational book, I think it gives adults and teens the opportunity to start these discussions that really need to happen as early as possible.
Definitely. Um, how do you think teachers or librarians can use this book to spark conversation in classrooms or at the library?
Ooh, that is a great question. Um, I mean, we do have a study guide. I hate to say guide, but like just um, open-ended questions, and I'd be glad to send that along. Also, I think there's 11 million undocumented people in America, right? So everybody knows someone who's undocumented, whether they know that they know them or not. And I think the more that we talk about this and open up what our thoughts are on that, our unconscious biases, or whatever we think we know about the immigration system, I think it would be great to just start with a discussion of what do you think why do you think so many people are coming here? Because that's like one of the biggest hurdles to get over, is this idea that people are coming here just so they can have an easier life. It's not like anybody has any choice in the matter most most of the time. Um, and what do you think papers are? It's not like it's, oh, I never went to the, you know, municipal building and got my papers. It's not that process at all. It's a horrific, often deadly process of coming here or anywhere seeking asylum. And it's because you literally have no other choice, because there are people who are going to kill your family or induct you into a gang or whatever it is. Um, and then once you're here, the process of getting your papers is just, it's beyond possibility in so many ways. Um, I was volunteering with immigrants when I was in college, and there was a man who was 80, boy, he was 85 or something, and he still wanted to take his citizenship test. And I was like, why would you ever, like, after what this country has done to you, why would you ever want to do that? But he finally, his number was finally called, and he really wanted to study for it. So I think that there are a lot of misperceptions about why someone would want to go through the immigration process.
So going back to starting this book, how did you and Pella meet? Did you seek her out? Did she seek you out? Did you guys already know each other before starting to write this book? How did this collaboration begin?
Well, a little bit like a blind date. We have the same book agent, and she had us meet, and I knew Paula's work from before that, and I knew about her co-founding the Women's March, and I was a bit starstruck, I don't mind saying. And I sort of wooed her. I like wrote her a little note and gave her candy um, because she was interviewing a bunch of other writers to write with her. Um, I've written all my other books solo, so I really didn't know what that would mean. And she came from a world where she always collaborates on her art. So we really didn't know each other. Like, our work relationship was completely brand new, and when I found out that she picked me, I was very excited, and also realized I've never written a book with someone before. So it was really exciting, and at times terrifying, but we really had a seamless time. It was very lovely the way that we just fell into our roles. It was pre-COVID, if you can believe it. So we got to meet together a handful of times and sort of start mapping out our ideas. And then a lot of it was done during COVID. So a lot of it was Google Docs and talking on the phone for hours.
So, how does that kind of work? Do you guys, I mean, you mapped it out. Do you guys write a certain section, or did you write parts and then she would get in there and change things? Or,
Yeah,
yeah.
all of the above. Yeah. I think we realized at some point that she is a more she's a genius at plot, and I need to dig into character. So I'll write something from a character's point of view, and that's where I stay for a while. And then she often comes in as like, where are they going? um, and she has a genius mind in terms of plot. So a lot of it was like setting the character's voice and what she wants and what's at stake for her and where she needs to be, and then going back and saying, okay, well, how can she actually get here? And it is a journey for her. I mean, not to give any spoilers, but she starts out in Vermont and she has to get to California, which is sanctuary. And so there were a lot of times where we had to take this huge whiteboard and like try to draw a map and figure out where she could stop and also go backwards in time. So if we say, sorry, I'm pointing with my pen. If we say, it's 2032, well, then 8 years before that, who was elected? And then, 4 years before that, or 4 years, and which horrible horrible new ruling was put in place when was DACA rescinded, and when was this put in place, and when was everybody made to have an identification chip, so that it kept it made sense chronologically, but we are working backwards.
Did you find it easier or more difficult to collaborate? And would you collaborate again as you're used to writing solo?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. We're collaborating on another book that is, I won't say it's book two, but it's in the same world. And yeah, I love it. I think we each get our time to go off and kind of create by ourselves and then bring it to each other. So the alone part of me, I mean the part that needs to work alone still gets.
Very cool. Um, a little sidetrack, but who illustrated the cover art? I just love it so much.
I love it too. I'm forgetting her name. Hold on. Oh, she has a beautiful name too. Hold on a second. I will find out. It has to be here somewhere, right? I believe she's a Polish artist. That's the key. Name, title. Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna find out for you. That's strange. It should be in the front.
I think I found it. Dana Lidl
Yes.
and Maria Fazio.
Dana Lido.
Anyway,
Yes.
it's really great graphic design. I love it so much.
Yeah. It's and she nailed it like very early on. I mean, we were very clear that we wanted her to be recognizably brown, brown skinned. The wall, is in the background, but it's a hopeful cover. It's a fighter's cover. She's a warrior. It's a badass. So yeah, there weren't many tweaks at all. And Paula is a very visual artist as well. So I I was really deferring to her, but there was not much that we needed to do. So first, she was a little bit too pretty, and we didn't want her to be a cover girl.
I think the graphic quality of the cover kind of echoes the Shepherd Ferry posters from the Women's March. Do you know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about? Yeah.
and
It
it's got some
reminds me of
Obama
that.
in it too. I think it's got
Mhm.
some of the hope, like when he had the big,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Going off of that, it was really important to make sure she had brown skin and really represent. There are so many dystopian teen novels and series and books that are all represented by all white kids. The Hunger Games, The Fifth Wave, The Host, Maze Runner, Divergent, even the Giver, Ender's Game, on and on, and they're all white. Knowing that representation certainly matters. Do you guys have thoughts or goals to make Sanctuary into a series, a TV series, or a movie?
Yes, definitely. We are in talks actually right now with some producers. So we are very hopeful that it's on its way to moviehood. And I think when we started writing this book, there were even less books starring protagonists of color or from Latinx backgrounds. And thankfully, there are a lot more this year. There are a lot more last year, and a lot more that really like hit the bestseller list and are really out in prominent places. And that is a great relief. The more, the merrier. And I think it was very important for us. Like I'm a white woman, clearly, and um, Paola is light skinned, as you'll see, but it was very important for us to make sure that every single person in this book is accurately represented. And so we really tested it by so many people who have experienced these situations more firsthand.
What were some of the harder parts to write, and what were some of your favorite parts to write Sanctuary?
Um, the harder parts definitely, well, for me personally, the plot points I was mentioning, like how the heck is she going to get from, I won't say the actual words, but like point A to point B without being killed. um, so that was challenging, hard emotionally. Um, was I think for me that was it happens pretty early on, so I don't think I'm giving any spoilers, is when her mom is taken, and that's why she is in charge of herself and her little brother, getting them to safety. um and I think I have lost my mom, and I think in a lot of ways, because my mom wasn't taken away from me by vicious deportation officers, but I did know what it felt like to have my mom die in front of me. And I think I had to really tap into what that felt like in order to write that scene authentically, even if it wasn't the same circumstances. The bond between a mother and a daughter is just, there's nothing like it. And so, going into that place for me was very hard, but ultimately really helpful, because I think um, it gave me the mindset of Valley, of the protagonist, of like why she has to take on this mission. Because once you've gone through that kind of heartbreak, like gut-wrenching pain, there is no answer except like, yeah, I will do what my mom told me to do. I will take up her mantle and I will take up the fight. So that was very, very hard. I think that we had fun. There were one of my favorite moments happens in Brooklyn when they get to Brooklyn, and Ernie finds a carousel. And if anyone knows Brooklyn, there's like this beautiful old carousel that they've refurbished. So that's a real place that both Paola and I have taken our kids to, and just watching this little boy go around and around and having this moment of pure joy and ignorant bliss was really fun because again, we've experienced it and we know what that looks like and what it smells like and all that.
Do you have any advice for people just starting out, writers, creators? Anything you can encourage them with or advice?
Yeah, I say write write a list every day. Write a list of things that you're grateful for. Write a list of things that piss you off. Write a list of the funniest words in your language. Write a list of colors that you think should be invented. Just write a list and write it by hand. I know a lot of people um, don't write by hand, and I mean, you don't have to write by hand. I just find it very soothing, and it's more like, I'm not promising you that makes you into a writer, an artist. It's just such good therapy, and that's really why I started writing. Was I needed some mental help, and the act of putting a pen to paper was really, really helpful to me. And I think lists are a very fun way of just dumping your brain onto the page and not making anything precious. You don't need to cross out the wrong thing. So if it was 3, then number 4 is what you actually meant. Like, you don't have to cross out anything or make it perfect.
I like that. So curious now, when writing Sanctuary or your other novels and books, do you first write it by hand and then type it?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
I have to write everything by hand, and I have tried really hard not to, like for the sake of getting some sleep, but I really can't. And I think part of it is the tactile like connection between your brain and your impulses or whatever is going on in my crazy brain. But I have to write that by hand. If I really can't, then I definitely have to speak it out loud. So that's the other thing I guess I would also say is speak things out loud. Write it and then say it out loud. Because it just becomes more real when you and it becomes more you when you can like find those words and speak those words. And another thing that I find really helpful about writing by hand first is that then when I'm putting it into the computer, that's a whole editing process. So if I can really write all the dregs of my thoughts, then the next time when I put it in the computer, I might only take like 3 words from that page. But I've already gone through that edit process, which is helpful.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any authors or books that you recommend that have inspired you in your work as a storyteller?
Definitely. I love, I'm looking at my bookshelf, but I love this woman. Of course, I'm blanking on her name now. Louisa. Well, I love Ta-Nehisi Coates. I love Ann Patchett. I'm going to look her up. Louisa. And she wrote the oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Children of
And if any of our participants right now, if you have any questions you'd like to ask or comments, feel free to raise your hand. We can unmute you, or you can type it in the chat or Q&A. Feel free.
oh, there it is. Sorry, I just got it. Valeria Luisela. I'm gonna write her name in the chat because it's hard to, I'm sure I'm not saying it right. Beautiful book.
Did she write the Lost Children Archive?
Thank you. The Lost
Yeah,
Children.
that was really good. I definitely recommend that to everyone.
My brain is so quarantined. There we go.
As a parent, do you share your work and stories with your kids? Are they maybe too young, or is that weird?
I've just started. My daughter's 12. So last year, but also I should say that she doesn't really like reading. and I try not to push it because then I think it'll become a punishment. But last year she did, or maybe 2 years ago. No, last year she did, like, for one of her book reports, she did my first, it was like a teen romance. And then I couldn't help her with the report because I was like, why would you make that point about that book? So I guess I don't push it because I'm not sure what the reaction is going to be. But a lot of her friends have read my books. And that's very fun to discuss them. I think actually my 10-year-old will probably wind up reading my books before she does because he's like a very avid reader.
I think most of my siblings were really avid readers, and I was super reluctant until I found comic books, and then I ate it all up.
Nice. And you don't mean graphic novels, you mean real comic books, right?
Well, both. I definitely started with just the Archie digest from the grocery store, and then
Right.
advanced to graphic novels, of course. Yeah. There you go. Poe is still not here. I was trying to save some questions that I thought both of you would want to answer, but
yeah, let me see if I can text her and see if she's on her way.
while we wait, I can ask you just what your hopes are that readers take away from reading Sanctuary.
That's a beautiful question. I think most important is that we are all so much of one voice and heart and mind, that we might look different and sound different and smell different and, I don't know, walk down the street differently, but everybody needs love and everybody needs water and, the basic essentials. And you never know somebody else's story until you ask them. I think in these first 5 pages that I read, the line that always gets me is, she was just a girl just like me. Like, they're both 15 and they're in such crazy different, and they weren't actually in such different circumstances. But if you think about like what it feels like to be a 15-year-old, and then imagine what it is to be a 15-year-old in Afghanistan, or to be a 15-year-old girl in anywhere in the world, and putting our minds and our hearts together is the only way that we can start seeing how alike we all really are.
Going off of that, what do you think your role is as an artist and activist in our current climate and state of the world?
That's a really hard one. Yeah, I think for a long time, as I said, I really shut it out. I think I shut out a lot of what was going on in the world. I mean, I read the news and things like that, and to make, you know, potent comedy, you need to know what's going on in the world. At the same time, I don't think I saw myself as needing to have a role like other people can take that on. I'm not good at that. Like I'm not good at math. And that is not acceptable to me anymore. Meeting Paolo is such a gift because I could make art that is hopefully an act of activism. I think art is an act of hope and an act of communication and connection. I truly believe that. And I think I'm much more equipped to do that than to organize a rally or translate the message that needs to get translated. I do think that each day, if there's something that I can do to spread kindness, I know that sounds very cliche, but whether it's, at a food pantry or talking to somebody who looks lost, I think that's how minimal it can be. But we all need to do something, or at least I know I need to do something each day that contributes to this change, because this past year especially, we've learned that we're all part of the problem.
Very true. Well, because you wrote Sanctuary for YA or Intergenerational, what can teenagers do as far as activism? What would you suggest to new activists and artists?
Be kind to yourself. That's one thing that's really, I don't want to pretend that it's easy. And I definitely, I sign up for, I'm going to be moms demand action, and I'm going to be that, and I'm going to do this. And at a certain point, it's like, well, if I'm not good to my family, or if I'm not here, then that doesn't actually help everyone. So yeah, give yourself space to breathe and take in what's going on, and also have some time not doing anything. Pick pick one cause that's really speaking to you for the moment, and see who else is doing things that really seem to be making a difference. I mean, it's incredible what's being done all the time. I can't even, I hear on the news like people gathering about voter suppression, stopping voter suppression. I'm like, where did they have time? Like, who made dinner? And so don't compare yourself to those people, but do take in the fact that there are people doing amazing activist work all over. And when one really makes you feel so like you have seltzer inside you instead of blood, then that's probably the one to go after.
Thank you so much. That's very wise. Yeah, it's something I definitely had to learn over this last year, to take a moment and care for myself.
Yeah.
Otherwise I can't care for anyone else.
Right.
Well, if any of the attendees have any questions, feel free to ask them now. We're just about out of time, but maybe we'll do a
Right.
second session with Paula. Yeah. Thank you so much, Abby. You're awesome. Sanctuary is awesome. I recommend everyone read it. It's available at Santa Fe Public Library. We have a bunch of copies. It's our big read choice for YA, but I suggest everyone read it.
I'm
It's
so
great.
excited to come visit. I love Santa Fe.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I would love to go to Brooklyn one day. We also have a poetry contest, essay contest, art contest, all sorts of big read stuff based around the ideas in these books, the themes of sanctuary and Into the Beautiful North. So I encourage everyone to participate in the big read. Check out Abby Sherritt's work on her website. You can find Sanctuary requested from your local bookstores, your libraries, and definitely support our authors, artists, activists out there that are doing important work and representing. And I need to thank all of our National Endowment for the Arts sponsors. Thank you to our community sponsors, NEA themselves, and especially thanks to Friends of the Library. So we were able to have Abby share with us. You're wonderful, Abby. Thank you a million times.
Thank you. You're all wonderful too. And please reach out to me or Paula if you have any questions. If you have the book or you have questions about the book, please, our social media feeds are in the chat, and we love engaging with readers.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Everyone
Thank
have a
you.
great evening, and
Yeah, take care.
stay safe, read books, read Sanctuary. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.